All right, let's journey way, way back. I mean, farther back than T-Rex, farther than any dinosaur you've ever heard of. We're going to explore the absolutely epic 4 billion year story of what life was like on Earth before the dinosaurs ever showed up.
So let's just jump right in with a question to get our heads around the timescale we're talking about. We think of dinosaurs as ancient, right? But they were basically the new kids on the block. So what was going on for the first 90% of Earth's entire history? The answer, I promise you, is stranger than you can possibly imagine.
You see, it's a story of bizarre, mattress-sized monsters living at the bottom of the sea. A story of an atmosphere that was literally poison, sparking a global crisis. And a story about the single greatest, most devastating catastrophe in the entire history of life. This is the deep, dark, and dramatic prologue to our world.
Okay, part 1. A world before life. Our story begins in the Hadean Eon, which is literally named after Hades. And for good reason. The young Earth was just this hellish, violent, molten ball. We're talking non-stop volcanoes and a constant rain of asteroids. There were no continents, no solid ground to speak of, just a chaotic stage being set for life's very first mysterious act.
And this brings us to the biggest question of all. How do you get life from, well, non-life, from dead rock? The leading idea is called abiogenesis. Now, this isn't some old-timey myth about mice just appearing from piles of hay. It's the theory that over immense spans of time, simple chemistry, given the right conditions, can gradually build up into complex biology.
So, what was the recipe for this primordial soup? Well, you start with the raw ingredients. A primitive atmosphere, probably full of things like methane and ammonia, but no free oxygen. Then you add an energy source, and there was plenty of that. We're talking lightning strikes, raw volcanic heat, and just brutal UV radiation from the young sun. Zap those ingredients, and what do you get? The basic building blocks of life, amino acids, begin to form and rain down into the early oceans.
And get this isn't just a cool idea. In 1952, two scientists, Miller and Urey, actually simulated these conditions in their lab. They mixed the gases, added some sparks to act as lightning, and in just 1 week, the water in their flask turned this murky brown color. It was filled with amino acids. It was this landmark moment that proved the first step from chemistry to biology wasn't just possible, it was maybe even inevitable. And this is our first real, tangible evidence of life itself. These are called stromatolites. They're basically fossilized pillows of slime, built up layer by huge colonies of microbes. These ones from Western Australia are 3.5 billion years old, and they tell us something profound. For billions of years, life wasn't just hanging on, it was organized, building entire communities, tiny little ecosystems.
Okay, so life is here, but these tiny microbes, they didn't just survive on Earth. Oh no, they completely re-engineered the entire planet. They became a geological force more powerful than any volcano or earthquake.
Just look at the difference. The old world was an alien planet, no breathable air, just a methane haze. But then, a new kind of microbe, cyanobacteria, figured out a brand new trick, photosynthesis. They started pumping out a waste product, and that waste product was oxygen. Over hundreds of millions of years, they terraformed the entire globe, creating the oxygen-rich atmosphere that you and I are breathing right now.
But here's the incredible irony. For most of the life on Earth at the time, oxygen was a corrosive, deadly poison. This Great Oxidation Event was a planet-wide pollution crisis. It likely caused one of the very first and most devastating mass extinctions ever. Life nearly wiped itself out, but in doing so, it created a brand new world, full of explosive new potential.
And that new potential led to the next massive leap forward. For about 2 billion years, all life was made of simple single cells, but then a new, much more complex kind of cell appeared, the eukaryotes. Our cells are eukaryotes. So how did they happen? The endosymbiotic theory suggests it wasn't just slow, competitive evolution. It was a radical act of cooperation, an ancient alliance.
It basically happened in 2 giant mergers. First, a larger host cell swallowed a smaller bacterium that could actually use that toxic oxygen to generate huge amounts of energy. Instead of being digested, it stuck around and became the mitochondrion, the powerhouse in all of our cells. Later on, a different cell did the same thing with a photosynthetic bacterium, and that became the chloroplast, a tiny solar panel. These mergers created the powerful, complex cells that would go on to build every animal and plant we've ever seen.
Okay.
So we've got a new world with breathable air, we've got powerful new cells, all the ingredients are in place. For 3 billion years, life had been pretty much invisible. Now we get to the main event, the animal Big Bang, when life suddenly got big. And when it happened with just shocking speed. We call it the Cambrian Explosion. And in a geological blink of an eye, we're talking maybe 13 to 25 million years, nearly every major animal blueprint that exists today just appeared. Arthropods, mollusks, even our own distant ancestors, the chordates. Bam! They were all there.
So what was the trigger? Why then? Well, it was like a perfect storm. Oxygen levels were rising again, the climate was getting warmer, you had minerals available to build shells, and animals had evolved a new genetic toolkit. But the real spark that lit the fuse, the thing that changed everything, was ecological, the invention of hunting. All of a sudden, the game totally changed. Life wasn't just about passively absorbing nutrients anymore. With animals developing the first eyes and actively hunting other animals, the world became a much more dangerous place. This kicked off a frantic evolutionary arms race. You had prey developing hard shells and sharp spines for defense, while predators evolved better claws and sharper senses to get past those defenses. This dynamic, this predator-prey relationship, is what drove the explosion of complexity.
So after that explosion, life just took off, conquering the seas and then the land. But this incredible era, the Paleozoic, didn't just fade away gently. It ended with a bang, the biggest, most destructive finale the planet has ever witnessed.
And man, what an era it was. This was the age of ancient life. We're talking the first fish with backbones, then the first brave plants creeping onto barren land, a whole age of fishes, an age of amphibians, and finally, the rise of powerful reptiles dominating the supercontinent of Pangaea. The progress was just relentless.
But you know, the real game changer, the single piece of technology that let animals truly conquer the continents for good? It was the amniotic egg. By basically creating a private pond for its embryo, complete with its own food supply, this incredible innovation freed reptiles from needing to run back to the water to lay their eggs. They can now move deep inland and claim the whole world.
And then it all just stopped. 252 million years ago, the lights went out. The Permian-Triassic extinction, better known as the Great Dying, was life's absolute deadliest hour. The numbers are just mind-boggling. An estimated 96% of all species in the ocean, gone. 70% of all vertebrate families on land, vanished. Life on Earth came terrifyingly close to being completely extinguished.
I mean, how do you even wrap your head around that? What on earth could cause that level of destruction? It wasn't a giant asteroid like the one that got the dinosaurs. No, this killer came from inside the planet itself.
And here's how it all went down. You start with absolutely colossal volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia. We're talking eruptions that went on for hundreds of thousands of years, pumping unimaginable amounts of greenhouse gases into the air. This triggered runaway global warming. And as the planet cooked, the oceans heated up, lost their oxygen, and became acidic. The entire global system just collapsed.
The Great Dying was basically a giant reset button for the planet. It just wiped the slate clean. The rich, complex world of the Paleozoic was gone. But in nature, a vacuum never stays empty for long, and into that empty world stepped the few survivors. A scrappy group of reptiles called the archosaurs seized the opportunity, diversified like crazy, and eventually gave rise to the lineage that would define the next 150 million years, the dinosaurs. So the end of one world was literally the violent birth of another. The planet's greatest catastrophe is the very reason the dinosaurs got their chance to rule. It leaves you with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? Every era leaves its own legacy, written into the rock of the earth. What will the legacy of our era be?